Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sisters, my name is Zahra and I welcome you all to the Mental Health and Wellbeing Series Part 3. In today's webinar, we'll be speaking about post-divorce, turning the page, embracing renewal and healing. And inshallah, we have a very special guest, Sister Aishah Javed, who is a qualified Islamic divorce coach who will be leading this session, inshallah. So just before we begin, inshallah, we will speak about a little bit about GRT and what GRT does. So GRT stands for Global Relief Trust, who is in fact, it's actually the fastest Muslim growing charity in the UK, focusing on humanitarian projects all around the world. They have offices, they are actually on the ground, and this is what makes Global Relief Trust, GRT, very unique, because they have their own offices and they have their on the ground teams within the countries that they work and operate in. So they have their own offices, they have their own team working in all of the countries that they work in, and they are known as one of the fastest growing Muslim charities. Other small charities actually work for GRT, doing their projects as well. And they have a very great vision to carry on this great work in the UK and abroad as well, globally as well. So they have operated they are working with sorry, just my little one who just walked in. They have just set up with Chronic Insights to deliver this webinar and many other webinars as well as this one. And just to mention that this mental health and wellbeing series will be having an on the ground in-person conference, inshallah, on the 2nd of November. So all of the speakers, if you've been following the mental health and wellbeing series from series 1, 2 and 3 and the series that will be upcoming, all of the staff will be there physically in person, so you can note that down. 2nd of November. We have a 250 person capacity, so do note that in your diaries, inshallah, and it'd be lovely to meet you all there, inshallah. So I'll pass it on to Sister Aishah Javed, and she can inshallah lead the session. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sister Aishah Javed, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Habibti. Thank you so much.
Barakallah feek. We look forward to having this session with you, inshallah.
Habibti, I look forward to always being with GRT and Islamic Quranic Insights, because
Alhamdulillah.
the work that we do here is just unmatched, in my opinion, in regards to both GRT and Quranic Insights. We have had, I even personally, I put my video on so everybody can see my beauty face. I have actually had many students of mine, or even clients of mine, that have been students of Quranic Insights and that have actually volunteered their time and their efforts to GRT themselves. And I hear nothing but goodness, nothing but goodness. And you guys are always a pleasure to work with as well. Alhamdulillah. So let's get started. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of you. Please let me know in the chat, like, where are you coming from? Whether you're in the UK, what's in the UK, whereabouts in the world are you coming from? Send your salams as well to each other whilst I share my screen. Alhamdulillah, we have lots of people from Birmingham, mashallah. London, amazing. I love London. Bangladesh. I've not had the opportunity to ever visit Bangladesh yet. Inshallah, one day. Warsaw, Bradford. Ooh, you're my neighbor. Bradford. I am actually from Bradford too. Malaysia, mashallah, you have so many people from all around the world. This is what we're talking about with GRT being a global community and charity to help everyone across the world. From Zambia as well, mashallah. May Allah preserve you all. Ameen, ameen. Also, let me know what inspired you to be part of this particular class today. I know it can be a taboo subject, sometimes talking about divorce, talking about marriages sometimes as well. It's not an easy task, definitely. I have had many challenges addressing the subject with many, many people. But it is something that does happen. Okay, so an actual introduction to me. My name is Aisha, and I am an Islamic divorce coach. And I am the co-owner. I am the owner and executive coach at Clear Sky Healing. But today, I'm just here as the Islamic divorce coach, sharing my knowledge on things that I have seen in both marriages and divorces. So, although my specialty is divorce, please know that whether you're in this position or not, you can certainly benefit. Because we also have had many people that come to us that are married but want to preserve their marriages. They never want to go through divorce. And I never recommend divorce to anyone at all without working on their marriages. Actually, I've never ever told anyone to get divorced. It's not something that someone else should tell you to do. In my opinion, it should come from you if you ever make that decision. But there are definitely steps that you must take before considering it. And that's what I want to speak about today. It will be it will be whether you are single, this will relate to you, take benefit from it and never be married. Whether you are married, whether it's a short period of marriage, like you've just gotten married, or you've been married for a long time, you are going to take benefit from this. And also if you have separated or even divorced or remarried as well. Okay, so any type of woman can take from this, inshallah. So I am going to do, sorry, I'm not the best with PowerPoint, by the way. I haven't used it in many, many years. So please bear with me, girls, if I make mistakes. Okay, the agenda for today is to look at self-confidence, self-worth, and what healing techniques we can put into practice for all women. I really highly recommend you have a notepad and you have a pen to go with it. Come as you are a student, inshallah. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's talk about me for a second, because I know some of you are new here, you have never seen me, and you have no idea who I am. So my name is Aishah, and I am an Islamic divorce coach. And as I mentioned, I co-own Clear Sky Healing. I am the one that writes all of the syllabus. I am the one that does all of the coaching and the marketing too. And one of the reasons I decided to set up and do the type of work that I'm doing is because I myself have gone through divorce. And so in 2018, I left a very difficult marriage with just a 3-year-old. I think she just turned 3 at that time. And I was very young. I was very young. I was 22. And I remember sitting on that decision for years. And it is not an easy task. And it took me a long time to get to that decision. But when I did, it was even more difficult because I did not know who I was. I did not know what I wanted to be in life, as in the type of woman I wanted to be in life. I was scared of what type of parent I was going to be. And the thing that got me the most is the lack of community care within the community I was, the Muslim community that I had around me. There wasn't a lot of information being openly spoke about. Okay, so people did have knowledge, people knew what to do, but it wasn't an open subject to speak about, or somewhere where you could go see someone and receive guidance on your own in privacy. Okay, and so I was one of the most educated women that lived in the refuge, meaning I didn't understand how people saw me until it was a woman who told me, who asked me why I was there because I had gone to school and I was at university. And it made me understand how some women, uh, how some women thought they were in that position because they lacked education. And I just want to say, if you are in that position, that is false. Domestic violence, abuse, or you struggling in a marriage isn't because you don't have education. It isn't because you left high school early. It isn't because you didn't get a degree. It is nothing to do with that. Any woman, any woman can go through difficulties in her marriage. Any woman can go through separation or a divorce or remarriage. This has nothing to do with education. Because, I mean, let's face it, even doctors get sick, right? They still have to go to doctors, right? This has nothing to do with an education or whether you can speak the native language of that country. And there was there was a narrative at the time that, hey, because she's not educated, of course she's going to go through this. And sometimes that happens now. And I just want to squash that belief right now and tell you that is not the reason. That is not the reason. And when I was living at that refuge, I remember telling the women that, hey, one day I'm going to come back and work with women who have been in similar situations. And so what I did is I went on to have therapy. I went on to have a lot of coaching. I still get coaching to keep me accountable. And then I set up eventually as just Aishah Javed, some divorce coach, and then went on to Clear Sky Healing. And now help women both on a group and one-to-one basis. Hence why I'm here to speak about this. But the work that we do is, although we work with specifically women that have gone through difficult marriages and divorces, honestly, majority of our work is going to be accessible to most people because the marriage status is the only difference. That's it. And so that's something that I currently practice. The qualifications that I went on to do were life coaching, Islamic marriage counseling, Islamic psychology is the expert thing that I work on and still continue to work on, and different modalities of therapy, just so that I can combine them as a student of knowledge as well to give women who come through my doors the best possible opportunity that they can grasp at that time to heal. In addition to that, the experience has been a governor on school boards. So having first-hand experience of what type of things are being taught in schools in regards to like abuse and neglect, all of the other things that we are all worried about now, especially in regards to the BAME community. Okay, those that are underrepresented, those who feel like are not heard enough. That's something that I am heavily involved with, as well as being a trustee on a few boards. So that deal mostly with the mental health of women and children and also empowerment of women. And of course, my favorite task, my favorite thing about me is that I am also a cat mom to two cats, Violet and Ella, and they are both brats and angels, honestly. They keep me up at night. They also make my sleeping life much better. But yes, two cats, Violet and Ella, a boy and a girl, and they definitely keep me busy. I also have a girl, by the way, my actual girl, and I am currently working on writing a book for Muslim women struggling through divorce and building their life again. But this will also include the struggles of marriage briefly. So that is something I am currently working on right now. Uh, Habibti, please let me know when it's break, right? And let's get into the actual juicy part that you're all waiting for. Okay, so I want to look at self-worth and self-confidence. So you may ask, Aisha, why did you choose these subjects specifically? Well, the thing is, and I'm okay with many people disagreeing with me, but especially within the BAME community, many women have been raised to believe that her worth entirely is in her husband. And the issues that we see come through our doors, and I know even the ulama, even the scholars, even other therapists struggle with this thing. This particular issue is when you're putting your entire worth and your whole life into a human being, we are forgetting where truly Allah comes from, like where He sits in our hearts. Because you have made an individual your entire being, and you forget yourself in that aspect. You forget yourself in the equation. And so, in my opinion, this is one of the things, just one of the things that many struggling marriages are are challenged with. It's self-worth, which therefore has a knock-on effect on self-confidence. And I want us to just have a look at this for a second. Like, what is self-confidence? What is self-worth? Okay. And how is it that we can increase our self-worth? And how does that affect our self-confidence as well? Like, what does that mean to us? So let's look at a real definition of what your self-worth is. Okay, so your self-worth is the evaluation of yourself as a capable and valuable human being, deserving of consideration and respect. How many of you think that your evaluation of yourself is low? Let me know. How many of you think that the evaluation of yourself is very low? SubhanAllah, I can see all your messages. That's what I'm actually looking at now. I'm so quiet. I'm looking. No, Allahumma barik. Okay. This is something that I see. I see this many, many, many times in marriages where the woman has usually been raised to believe that her husband is the one that will be able to instill that value and that capability in her, which is correct, but not 100%. And what do I mean by that is sometimes because of the loving nature and the nurturing nature of a woman, her entire worth is put into her husband. She will do that. Because if my husband is happy, then I am happy. And that is such a blessing to have. However, you also have to remember that you are a person as well. And you are a complementary individual to him. Okay? That individual is there to support you and for you to lean on, but they're not someone who can complete your wholeness. You are already a whole woman. when you enter into a marriage. Inshallah. You are already a complete human being, and so is he. And both of you are going to come together in a wonderful marriage, inshallah, in a wonderful companionship. And there are times where you're going to lean on him more, or he is going to lean onto you more, right? Naturally, right? However, the one thing we find in women is that they forget to nurture this. They forget to nurture this. They forget to nurture that they have to still continue with like doing things that they feel good about so that they can continue to be that soft cushioning for their spouses. Okay. And what they do is they put individuals in the center of their lives, whether that's your husbands, whether that's their families, whether that's your families, whether it's your children. And what I'm saying here is when we swap that out for Allah instead of the individual, things are easier to deal with. Things are easier for you to understand. Your worth is in Allah, not in the human. Okay? Is everybody on the same page as me? Mm. I'm looking at your comments, by the way. Yeah, you guys have brought up some very, very valid points. But regardless of which individual is working, you can still work on your self-worth. Because your self-worth, remember, is the evaluation of yourself as a capable human. And many women don't believe that they can be truly loved, especially after divorce. They think, hey, who's gonna marry me now? I'm a woman that has 3 kids or have been through a divorce. It's your perception of yourself, not anybody else. Because the thing is, and let's be really honest, and all of us has probably had to go through this once in life, no matter what you do, there's always going to be an individual that has something to say to you. That's just a fact of life, right? Whether you get married, someone is going to say, okay, when do you have kids? When are you having kids? You don't get married. Someone is going to say, why did you take so long? Like, what are you doing with your life? You have more than one child. Oh my God, how many children are you having? You have one child. Oh, you're never going to have more children. You know, you have a big house. Oof, they spend so much money in their house. You have a small house. Oh, why don't you save up and buy a bigger house? Or why don't you get a better job? Why are you driving that car? No matter what you do, Habibti, there's always going to be individuals or an individual who will say something. And so that is going to happen. That's just a given. But your self-worth is you and how you feel about it. So, and that's what we're trying to get here. Like, no one else will ever be able to fill your cup the way you will. Because contentment, which we are all so desperately to find naturally as humans, comes from you and your hearts. We have to be able to live by our own ethos as well. And by Allah, when you are truly living your own worth, you are so much more attractive. And I don't mean romantically only. I mean your friends are going to see such a difference in you. Your parents are going to see a difference in you. Your children will see a difference in you. You'll parent so much differently. You'll be such a different employee. And if you are in marriages, by the way, you are definitely going to be a different wife because you're not relying on the other person 100% or more than you need to. Okay. And just to be very clear here, it doesn't mean you don't rely on your husbands. Okay, self-confidence. Self-confidence is an attitude you have towards your skills and your abilities. The more self-worth, the better your self-worth, the better your self-confidence, because you will feel that you are deserving for that particular thing. And when you have low self-confidence, you often struggle with trusting your skills and trusting your abilities. So some of you have already said in the chat here, like, hey, I've been married before and I want to get married again, but I don't think I'll be able to. Like, who is going to marry a divorcee? And the fact of the matter is, Sorry, girls, I got a bit distracted by your messages. The fact of the matter is, the more you believe in yourself, the better you're going to perform. And you will always have someone who says something, but you have to have that discipline and get into that understanding that regardless of what happens around me, I am still me. So I'm still Aisha. I, s- I'll tell you something. I speak on the topic of divorce very often, right? And struggling marriages very often. And also confidence and self-worth of all women very often. And this is something that is really a difficult subject for so many people to comprehend. It is difficult for some people to swallow because it can become a subject where there are many disagreements, and that is okay. But if I had continued to listen to those people, I wouldn't have been able to help number one, myself. Number one, myself. And number two, all of the women that we have been, you wouldn't be in this class if I wasn't able to do that. And that's the way we have to look at it. Because ultimately, you're going to be standing in front of God and you're going to be assessing your hearts. That's the way we have to look at it. I hope we're all on the same page, inshallah. Okay, the struggle. Okay, so I wanted to speak about obviously the struggle of low self-worth and self ex confidence. And what do we do when we're struggling with that? So if we're struggling with the acceptance of the idea of who we are, what we're allowed to do, our confidence issues, etc., etc., these are the things that I would tell my own clients because right now you're all the same, and I want to give you the best of the best. I highly recommend you, first of all, is working with someone that is professional, someone that will keep you accountable, someone that is going to say to you, Habibti, you need to do your tasks. And there's also that person, could be the same person or maybe a different person, who is compassionate towards you when you are really not up to it, because that is also important. So, first things first, I want you to examine the language that you use with yourself on a daily basis. And this is one of the hard, yes, this is one of the hardest to do on this list. Examining the language that you are using with yourself. And you're asking, how do you do that? Any healing is about being conscious. It's about understanding what you are doing right now. Because so many of us live in the past. And we live in the past psychologically because we haven't processed what is in the past. And I'm going to give you something which many people do not speak about, but talking about an event can only lead you to a certain path, to a certain level, excuse me. When we talk about our situation, there are a few things we need to be very aware of. Number one, who we talk to about it. I would highly suggest you speak to someone that you, number one, trust deeply, and number two, that person is able to, inshallah, give you the ears and the comfort from someone who can be objective. So they don't have an issue with correcting you when you bring some up that is not going to help you. Okay. So whether that's a professional, whether that's a friend, whether that is your next door neighbor, just someone who will not tell another person. Okay. The second thing is we must be really mindful when we are sharing with someone that it's someone that can help you, that can actually give you genuine feedback, that can actually help you. And the reason I say this is because it may be considered backbiting if we're not careful of who we tell, okay, and how we tell it. That which leads me to the last point is we must be mindful how we tell people. And what is the capacity of telling someone? Okay, this does not mean you don't tell someone to get help. Okay, all I am saying is just be mindful how you do it. The other thing I want us to do is examining our language is taking a few minutes, maybe at the end of the day, and then you can build this up and just having a look at the types of thoughts that come in your mind. When you record your thoughts, you can examine your language that way. Like, how do you talk to yourself? Many women will say things like, even if it's a joke, we've all probably done this. Oh, I'm so stupid. She told me that to do this, and I completely forgot about it, and I have ended up doing this. How many of us have ever said that to ourselves or to someone? Let me know in the chat, like, how many of us have said this? Often, yeah. We've all been there. It doesn't, by the way, it does not make you bad people. It doesn't make you silly people. Okay? We've all been there. We have all said to ourselves at some point, oh, I'm so silly, I should have done this. Oh, I'm so da 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 da. And given ourselves a description word that is not positive. Those are the types of sentences I want you to start recording. Those are the types of thoughts I want you to start recording. So one thing I personally did is I kept a journal, and for several this I did this over a few months, and continuously did it, meaning I went back very often. Record my thoughts for the day. So I thought about what I was going to cook. I thought about that time when he said this to me. I thought about what I need to do tomorrow. I work at work. I thought about all of these things that come up in your daily lives, and there's going to be hundreds of different things that come up, right? Because you all have so many things to do. This life is busy. And then I want you to go back. I'll come back to this, Habibti, this one. I've just yeah, you can screenshot the questions. Just make sure no one's name is at the bottom. Just mine is okay. But this will be sent to you in the recording, I believe. GRT will always send it to you anyway. So examining your language through your daily thoughts. Some people call this a stream of consciousness as well. So as soon as they wake up, or even on an evening, they take a diary or a journal and they just write whatever comes to their mind. And for as long as they have thoughts coming in their minds, or until they feel satisfied that they have written everything they want to write for that particular sitting down session. I appreciate not everyone has this kind of time. I get that. But I want to say is and have a look at your routine and try it, because you never know what type of patterns you are going to see. When you go back to that body of work or that body of writing, you look at it as much as you can objectively. And this is the beauty of the creation of Allah, that He has granted this ability to look at things objectively. We all have it. If you feel like you can't quite do that right, give it to someone that you trust. If you're working with someone professional, do the same thing, give it to them and ask them what patterns they see, and ask them to help you see those patterns. Someone said, correct it how? Oh, okay, she's not, she's replying to the woman above. Okay, so the next thing, I would say this is the second hardest, and this is the challenging of your thoughts. Not all of the thoughts that come to your mind are true. The thing with your mind is we all have a conscious, things that we know that we do on a daily basis. The fact that I'm sat on a chair and I'm talking to you, I'm consciously doing this. I know exactly what I'm doing. We also have a subconscious, which means it collects that type of the mind, collects information, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that I'm collecting information. And it doesn't have the ability to filter out right and wrong. This is the problem that we have. Actually, it's a perfect design of Allah, but it doesn't have the ability to filter out right and wrong, which is why we have to be very conscious with the actions and the things that we say and do on a daily basis. So we have to be able to challenge the thoughts. Challenging your thoughts are literally challenging when they come up. So if I, like the woman, there's a sister who just said, I have a lot of thoughts that are, what if this happens? What if that happens? If that is coming up in your mind, answer the question. What if you do lose the gold ring that was gifted to you? Answer the question. That's your mind asking you, well, and think about it, Lord, if you have to do a spider diagram to break down that thought, do it. You challenge it as well. Like, what is the likelihood this is going to happen? Usually it's not. And walk yourself through the scenario in case it does, so that your mind feels safe. The brain's primary objective is to keep you safe. So when you feel that you're not safe in many different capacities, emotionally, psychologically, physically, your brain tells you that you're not safe right now. So it will, which is what we call a trigger. And I want us to start challenging that, like, hey, am I actually safe? Asking yourself. And if you feel like you are, you need to tell yourself, like, I am safe, we're good. Ask yourself these questions. Otherwise, you are going to continue um to have these thoughts, and they will replay in your mind again and again. Intrusive thoughts is what people really, really struggle with, because they don't stop them and they don't challenge them as well. And so they will come up again and again. This is one of the most difficult things, along with examining language. It is, because it requires a lot of curiosity and patience. And that's what I those that's point is what I always describe as the bane of my existence sometimes. It is hard. We all go through it though. We all do have intrusive thoughts. No matter what level of feeling you are going to have them. So I want us all to understand, like, you're not alone and that everybody gets this. You're not going crazy. I was asked by a woman recently, like, hey Aisha, am I going crazy? I can't stop thinking about these things. I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't drink. And my answer to that is no, you're not going crazy. The next thing is I want you to challenge your daily habits. If I was to look at your schedule, I would probably know where your mind is right now. Your The way you conduct yourself on a daily is going to show me where your mind is at. And please don't get me wrong, we are not going to be perfect and have this perfect routine every day, because life doesn't work like that, right? It gets messed up, and that's okay. But I want us to really look at the habits that we have. Where are we losing time? Are we challenging ourselves to be better people? And how are we doing that? one of the tasks I like to give my clients when they're struggling with, when they are in marriages and they're struggling, or they've just come out of the marriage and they're struggling to look at the future, the task which I ask you all to do is to write a list of where you are now. Like, what are you, what are you emotionally feeling and psychologically feeling? What comes up in your body? What do you think about a lot? What type of clothes are you wearing on a daily? What does your language look like on a daily basis? What habits do you have that you would really love to change? And then I want you to ask the same questions for where you want to be in 6 months' time, providing, inshallah, providing that you work on your healing. What type of woman do you want to be? And I want you to dream big because we're all entitled to dream big. And then examine the company that you are surrounding yourself with. Are you surrounding yourself with people that are always talking negatively, that are always challenging your identity and who you are and how you conduct yourself? Where are you? Sometimes you can't help this, by the way, depending on um, who you're living with, right? But you can still go and seek a better. I'm getting to that. What if the person is your husband? You can still go and seek better company. You don't have to talk to anyone about it, or when your emotions are trapped in your body, they have to find a way out of themselves. Examining the company, goodness me, examining the company that you have, goodness, is very important. This is actually in a hadith as well. Like we are the people that we hang out with. And if that person that is not particularly nice is someone that you live with, also you have to make sure that you have the appropriate people outside of your marriage that help you. Whether that's sisters halaqah, whether that's your siblings and your parents, making sure that you are in touch with those people, but also working on your habits too. Because the more you work on your habits, the easier the whole situation becomes. And the easier sometimes for some women, that means the marriage gets significantly better. Some women find that actually we can't be in this marriage right now and they opt for separation. And some women do go through divorce because they were so confused before, like, where do we want to go? And the divide between the husband and wife and the other way around is so bigger, so much bigger. So the decision comes to them. And I also want to say, as a disclaimer, if somebody tells you to go through a divorce, I want you to double, triple, quadruple think about it. Because the thing is, it definitely should come from you, not anyone else. Not anyone else. The decision should come with you and your spouse, of course, not anybody else. That is not anybody else's right to force you to go through through it, if you do not want to. But then I would also say to you, if you do not want to, how are you going to make things better now? What is your plan? There always has to be a game plan in place. Like, hey, I don't want to go through this right now. How about we both go through counseling together? What is the ideal plan? Are you talking about if you decide you need to go through a divorce? Is that what you're talking about? Because the first thing I'm always going to say to you is get marriage counseling first. Always go through this. There are steps to go through a divorce. The first thing is always a conversation with your actual husband. As difficult as it might be, Habibti, as hard as it might be, counseling is expensive, but depending on where you go, I think you have to look at, is it which one is more expensive? If a person doesn't change, I think then you would have to seek the appropriate advice by your imams, like because you have to be able to practice your deen as well. Okay, next slide. I want to debunk some common myths slash commonly held beliefs about marriages, divorces, separations, all of that things that come up for us, especially in our um, practice. Number one, it is a punishment from Allah. Number, I'm gonna go through them first and then come back to them. Number two, sihr, is black magic slash jinn. Number three, ayn and nazar, um, like the evil eye. This is why you've gone through X, Y, and Z. Uh, the next one, you couldn't look after the house as a real woman should. Remember, these are beliefs that people have come to me with. These are not my opinions. The next one, divorce is the most hated in the eyes of Allah. The next one, I am not worthy of being a wife ever again. And the juiciest one that I hear on a daily basis, and I myself did unfortunately ask the same thing, who will marry me now? Okay, you're looking at the list in front of you. Tell me in the chat how many of you have either said this or thought this or heard this. Yeah, sometimes family oh yeah, just want to make it very clear. I'm not saying these are not the reason or cannot be the reasons for a divorce because sihr, I definitely can. But what I'm saying is when you concentrate yourself on these and you're not doing anything about it, then it just you stay in that limbo, okay? Because the thing is, in regards to sihr and ayn, especially from the culture that I come from, it becomes the number one reason to why a marriage didn't work out. And that's how people justify it when there isn't anything involving that. Okay, I just want to be very clear here. So, with sihr and ain, a lot of people have accused the other person of doing it, and that's why the marriages broke down. Okay, and we have to be really careful with accusations, but we also have to ask ourselves, okay, what am I doing about this position though? And I think that's where people actually I know that's where people fall short, both men and women. Okay. Okay, so let's go through them. What time are we on? We got time. We got time. Okay, so our these are commonly held beliefs, and unfortunately, some of them really are the reasons why people get divorced. But other times, it's an excuse that people give to each other to justify um, abuse from people, to justify any type of like ill behavior. Okay. Now, if you are going through any type of sihr or ayn or have jinn issues, I would highly recommend, firstly and foremost, making sure that are keeping up with your adhkar, your Quran, your salah as much as you possibly can, like your fara'id as much as you possibly can. And please seek out a professional alim or raqi who can actually help you. Okay, I have to tell you that. Like, please make sure that you are doing that. The first thing first, that it is a punishment from Allah. I want to debunk this straight away and just say to you, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam divorced women. He himself divorced women. Okay, this is something that all of us should know, inshallah, from now on. Now, he did divorce a woman. The Sahaba Ikram divorced women. It was not an issue then. Okay, so if it is a punishment from Allah, then why is it that we have an entire surah in the Quran that tells us that we can do this. Now, of course, you have to make sure that you are going through all of the necessary things to make a relationship work, right? This is for both people, of course. But I want to debunk some myths that I hear on a daily basis, like, hey, a lot of women punish themselves because they believe, like, hey, God is so angry with me. And I want to say that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with you, then what can you put into place to seek the forgiveness of Allah? We always have to switch whatever we are really thinking if we don't have a definite answer. Okay? The thing I'm saying here is I'm not justifying anybody else's actions, whether that's abusive, um, etc. I'm not justifying what the other person has done to you at all. I'm not saying they've done right. No. But what I'm saying is it is your responsibility then to deal with the emotions that you feel because you've created them. So how do we work on that? And the reason I do that is because when we give all of our energy to that individual because they did such, or people because they did such wrong to us, Allah will deal with that. But what about the hurt and pain that's in my heart? What about the envy that I have in my heart? We have to look after that because the heart is what Allah looks at when He judges me and you. And the purification of the heart, which is called tazkiyah, comes from being able to work through that pain and that envy. How do we do that? Let's look at ourselves first. Like, what do we need to do for ourselves? Not for anybody else, for ourselves first. Whatever the other person has done, that will come to pass. You don't have to worry about that. Even if it appears that they're so incredibly happy, remember this dunya is very temporary. 50, 60, 70 years, that's all we're here for, really, isn't it? But you have to also look at your hearts. Because why? Because many of you probably have children and they're going to be picking up on the traits that you have, on the mindset that you have, on the language that you have, because you are your child's inner voice. The other thing is divorce is the most hated in the eyes of Allah. Well, I want us to understand there's a hadith in regards to this, definitely. This hadith has been, for many scholars, being deemed as weak. But this is something I am asking you to still go back to your scholars and ask about it. Have that discussion and ask yourself, how then can I rectify what I am doing right now for myself? Each and every single one of us has a responsibility to ourselves. This doesn't justify what the other person has done. That will be taken care of. There's a lot of anger. I'm looking at the chat right now. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of he did this and she did this, which is justified, of course, because you went through a difficult situation or many difficult situations. But even if that person said sorry, would it change your hearts? Would it change the way you think about yourself now? Like, we have to ask ourselves, who's going to help us with that? And the answer is you. The last two, I am not worthy of being a wife ever again, and who will marry me? The way I want you to think about this is it is not up to me or you or our parents. It's not at it's not at their power who we marry. What do I mean by that? I mean, even if both individuals have a responsibility in the child, if a person decides not to take it, then that is definitely on them. I first and foremost want to tell you that there are some absolutely amazing brothers out there who will look after women and who will marry women with children. But you have to be able to believe that. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to that worthiness. Remember, that worthiness is you put it into Allah. You have to work with someone who will help you with that worthiness. And the fact of the matter is, it's a reflection of how we look at Allah Himself, how we look at God. Now, if we take religion out of this for a second and Islam out of this for a second, how do we increase our self-worth? Right? I gave you some of those things before, but I want to add like the cream to the crop really here. What I want to say to this is when you feel like you are not worthy of an individual, or you only will ever get married to a certain type of person now that you have been married before, I want us to understand that your worthiness comes from your projection of who you are. And you have to be able to, especially after having kids, especially after a marriage, because it does change you. You have to be able to tap back into who you are and rediscover who you are. If you haven't kept up with your identity, what is it that you like? What is it you want from life? What is it that you want to be? And I'm not talking about like, I want to be an astronaut. If you want to, Bismillah. But I'm talking about what core values do you hold within you? And are you living to them? So I'll give you an example. One of my values is honesty. And one of my values is also religion. I value my religion a lot. Like I value the fact that I wear my niqab, the fact that I wear a dress in a certain way, and there are certain etiquettes in our house or certain rules in our house that I am strict on. Those are my values. Like I live by them. And so when you are going to meet people or when you are introducing yourself to other people, whether that's friends or getting to know someone to get married, these things must be kept in check. You have to hold those beliefs because if you do not hold those beliefs, you will attract the same person that you had left, the same type of person. That's why I say healing before getting married again is incredibly important. I want us to understand that worthiness is from us, not anybody else. Put your worthiness in Allah and know that He has made you in the most beautiful fashion. So long as you're not doing anything that's not halal, you can do so much. The sky is your limit. But when you say to yourself, there's not men that are willing to be men, there's not men that are this, actually that's a reflection on Allah Himself because He's the one that created us. So let's be mindful with these. Hence why I say language is important. How you address it is important. There are men that are fantastic. There are men that are just, it doesn't matter how many times you got married. Sometimes it helps to just download an app, not to actually date, but to shift from married to unmarried and open the mind. You mean the other way around, Habibti? Unmarried to married. Do you know what, Habibti, you reminded me of something that's absolutely, I should have put into the slides. When you are looking to marry, if you are in that position, I want you to start living as though you are a married woman. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about your habits, the way you conduct yourself, the way you are inside. Feel it within your hearts because you're more likely to find married life much easier. There's things that you're going to have to change, right, when you get married again. That's natural in every relationships. Start living like that now and ask yourself, am I possessing the same attributes, skills, even maybe um and situation characteristics that I am looking for in the other person. But where by asking who's going to marry you now, I want you to remind yourself that look, it is God Himself that puts you into these partnerships. And let's turn our attention to that. Let's see. Let's talk about self-care. Oh, okay, we're running a little bit late, aren't we? Okay, self-care. Okay, this is something that I personally practice and also give to every woman that comes to me in regards to like, hey, Aisha, how do I get better? How do I get better, feel better, think better? How do I heal from this really traumatic individual situation that I have been through? The thing is, I always ask them about their self-care. Now, usually they think that self-care, I'm talking about face masks and hair masks, and those are part of self-care. However, self-care in I will come back to these, okay? We'll have a discussion in just a while. I'm going to whiz through these and then we'll come back to have that discussion. Okay, so self-care comes in three strands, three categories. There's physical care, there is emotional care, and there is spiritual care. And these are things that must be hit every single day in order for you to be consistent with making sure that you are putting yourself first so that you can be the best parent, wife, ex-wife, whatever it is you are right now, and most importantly, woman. Most importantly, because in when you feel good and when you think good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you do good. Okay, and that these are the habits that we have to implement into our families, right? So physical care, this is what we have all been taught in school. We all know this. Our doctors have been telling this since we were born. Physical care is incredibly important. Your body has a right over you, and it will testify against you if you are not looking after it. In order to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, we have to build better habits. This is a lifestyle change. This is not something, as you can possibly probably tell, I'm not someone that's going to give you quick fixes all the time. Those are great sometimes, but I want to know, like, why do you keep repeating the same pattern, right? Because if we can work on that, then you don't need to keep coming back to me. You can do this. And that starts with inside, not outside. Inside always. So let's look at our diet. And I had to do this myself, girls, by the way. Everything that I'm writing here, I'm doing myself as well. So diet. Your diet significantly impacts the way you think. Significantly. If you are always on, grabbing snacks and having fried things, which we all know this. It significantly impacts the growth of our brain. Caffeine reduces the way the brain, um, my goodness, that's not the word I'm looking for. Caffeine shrinks the brain. There are many studies on this. It shrinks the brain. It's not able to function as much. Yes, there will be a recording. And so we need to be mindful of that, because if you were anyone like me who had to survive on coffee and energy drinks as well just to feel alive, that's a point for you. Switch it to water. And just like you sleep train babies, you must sleep train yourself as well to get into the habit of waking up and sleeping at a certain time. I have to do this myself. Physical activity releases feel good hormones and it helps you be able to feel like you have actually done something tangible. Sometimes the emotions are just too much. You feel extremely lethargic, you feel tired, like, and I would always tell a woman, like, hey, you are going to feel very tired after speaking to me, especially for the first few times, because it is mentally draining. So start doing something physical, whether that's going out in nature, walking, because it releases hormones to make you feel good. Okay. Deep breathing. Deep breathing, we all know this. But I don't want to lie to you and say it's going to completely regulate your emotions and your nervous system, because it doesn't do that. It's a temporary thing. Okay. So when you feel incredibly overwhelmed, just a big sigh, some deep breathing, 5 minutes of what we call in our house quiet time to be able to reset. And sometimes we need that, right? That quiet amongst the noise. Walking and grounding in nature. We all know this. There's just a beauty in nature that we cannot find anywhere else. There's that quiet, the stillness, because we are not built for such a rigorous schedule that we all have. We're not built to do this type of thing. It's a lot of information for our minds, scrolling through reels, like 30-second reels, so much information. So we need to be able to balance that with calm, with serenity. You have to be able to slow down to speed up. Sleeping and drinking enough water. So drinking enough water, you guys know this. The more you drink water, the more hydrated you are. Every single cell in your body needs water. You need it to survive. Excuse me. And it's good for your brain. Your brain needs it as well. And sleeping. Sleeping is when the brain actually cleans itself, right? Did anybody know that? Sleeping is when your brain cleans itself. And so we need to make sure we are getting sufficient amount of sleep. Mindfulness is indeed brilliant too. Physical care, we all know this. We learned in school, right? But what we didn't talk about too much is spiritual care. Spiritual care, again, we do know this, but the difference between what we may have learned and what I'm about to say is only one thing, and that is do it small, do it consistent, and be mindful. Maybe three things then. Small, consistent, mindful. Small, consistent, and mindful. Start off with baby steps. The issue we have with people falling off with their uh, religious steps, etc., or their religious journey is they think I'm going to go from A all the way up to Z in one day, or in one week, or in one month. And I always say, look, let's take a breath, take a breather, and come back to step A. And let's figure out how are we going to get to step B and build. Build the foundation first. Just like you guys would teach a young child slowly, 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 the same thing. And what does a young child do when they're trying to walk? They fall over a million times. They're trying to get their balance. They're not sure. They need a bit of help sometimes, don't they? Similar thing with habits. Start small and build, but do something that you enjoy doing as your extracurricular dean requirements, dean activities. That might be hosting a sisters gathering. You don't need to do anything like Quran. You might not want to do your salawat, but just sitting with sisters of your neighborhood maybe and talking about things like life and how they parent their kids or what type of routines do they have, making sure that it is a good conversation, but that you're learning from each other. Divorce is definitely not easy, is it? Oh, shares and then sharing lessons and things like this on social media. You can easily do these. Start small and build from it. I always recommend the girls looking at the 99 names of Allah. And lastly, if this will change for me, okay, this is something that is not spoken about. Emotional care. A lot of women don't have this in their daily life. This is part of self-care and it's necessary on a daily basis. Looking after the emotions that you have. How do you regulate your emotions? How are you spending time with each other? How are you spending time with yourself? And I get it. People have kids like, hey, I don't have time for myself. We're only asking for 5 minutes a day. And that absolutely can be done when children go to sleep or when it's nap time. But it's always about having a routine and priority. And I genuinely mean 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes of sitting in silence and allowing those thoughts to come up so that you can address them. If you do not address thoughts that come up and emotions that come up for you, they will stay stuck in your body, hence why people get so many ailments like PCOS, like heartburn, like backaches, like neck aches, like migraines. All of these things are trapped emotions that you haven't dealt with. And you will find many women struggle more after they've gone through a really traumatic event, whatever the event is, and they haven't had time to grieve or process or the ability to do that because they haven't had that space to do it. Emotional care is very much about emotional regulation. How do we regulate emotions? How do we identify what our emotions are? This is when I usually say, please work with a professional that can actually help you deconstruct this and put it into a routine for you if you find that to be difficult to do. Looking at what our triggers are, what makes us feel weak, how is it that we can help ourselves? Any type of healing post marriage or in a marriage requires a lot of curiosity, as I mentioned earlier, but it requires a lot of can do attitude. And it is not easy. And I am not here to sugarcoat it for you. Yeah, I think many women are, um, many women really do struggle with their pregnancies and being gaslit and being shut down as well. But you can still do this with yourselves as well. Like, what is it that makes you you? It's a self-evaluation first. If someone else doesn't want to play ball with you, start with you. Okay, and organizations that can help. So I put together, and this is also a very, very similar list to our sister Rabia, I think. Because honestly, when she had her lesson and she had organizations that can help, they were pretty much exactly the same organizations that I personally would recommend to other people. Inspired Minds, great, and the Latif Project, the Lantern Initiative, Mind is fantastic. It has a lot of printables as well that you should be able to print out. And then of course my practice, Clear Sky Healing. And then I've given my Instagram name there, should you want to give us a follow. But before I finish off, I would just like to first of all thank GRT and IQ, Islamic Quranic Insight QI, and say thank you so much for inviting me and for always remembering me in these classes. But I also would like to tell you sisters, before we open the floor up, inshallah, the initiatives we have here are to help other people. And I know we always are running classes at Quranic Insights on many, many different things. But please, please do share our pages. Do share Quranic Insights. Do share GRT. Because without the support of you guys donating to us, sharing messages, we wouldn't be able to do what we do here in the organization. Like, we wouldn't. And I would just like to say thank you so much for coming to all our classes. I know we've had some incredible speakers here, but please make sure that you do visit our website. I think our sister here would will attach it to the email. I believe your recording will be sent by email. But thank you for having me. Habibti, it's over to you before we open up for Q&A.
Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah khair. That was a really insightful, alhamdulillah, and I'm sure that it benefited the sisters. We've had a lot of engagement in the chat box, which inshallah we will save, and Sister Aisha, I'll send it across to you as well, just for your for you to see, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for being here once again, Sister Aisha. Alhamdulillah, it was a pleasure having you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and accept this hard work from you as well. I mean, the recording, inshallah, will be emailed to all those who have registered. So if you haven't registered, do head over to the Quranic Insights website, www.quranicinsights.com, and you will be able to register there. And then once you've registered, inshallah, you'll receive the recording via your email address, inshallah. So inshallah, you can go ahead with the question and answer, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I'm actually looking through the chat now, and sometimes I get so distracted with the chat, as you guys saw. Like, I really want to answer your questions straight away, but send them to me again if I haven't been able to manage to answer during the actual class. Firstly, Barakallahu Fiki Habibti, thank you for being here. How do you get the balance between trying your hardest when your husband with your husband and keep your dignity and self? Excuse me, sir. Thank you, Habibti. I think first of all, when you know what your self-worth is, you would start behaving to that. And there will be friction in the house if that's not palatable for whoever lives in the house, whether that be your husband, in-laws, children, and that's okay. When that comes up, by that time, because you've been working on your self-worth, you would understand this is where I stand, and I know this is where you stand, and then those discussions would get easier. Like, hey, we are on two different pages right now. How can we be on the same page? What is it that we need to do? Now, please remember, this goes for both brothers and sisters, so it happens both ways. The other spouse may say to you, well, actually, I want you to go back to who you were. Then it's up to you to say, I've improved this, I've improved this, I've improved this. I'm not going back to that individual, but how can we work with what we have going forward? So there you've put in a boundary. You haven't been disrespectful, and please be mindful when you're having discussions in your families and your marriages. Like, we still have to remember that our adab and our manners. And I'm not saying you don't, but I have to be able to remind you. This is a reminder to myself first, because sometimes that's where we find things can get very bitter. And again, this is for both sisters and brothers, but I know all of us are women here. In case some of you, I know some of you may have joined because you have family members in this position as well. We have to still remember, like, our decorum, like the way we are, because that plays such a big deal in what happens after. Meaning, if if it was a rough patch, people appreciate the other spouse appreciates it. And if it does end up in a divorce, it's easier to go through because there's so much other involved. And honestly, being very frank, this is the issue we deal with on a daily, where both men and women feel in order to hurt the spouse, they will use all sorts of tactics. And I'm sure some of you have already gone through this, which is so, it's difficult to even swallow sometimes, even for me. But let's remember that. Okay, I'm going back. Great session. This has been very beneficial. Allahumma barik. Thank you so much, Famida. Definitely friction is trying to control me because I'm trying to do what's best. Have good friends focusing on my thing. For example, is telling me that I can't see your family and friends and you beat it because I think Habibti, I'm gonna just I'm about to heart your message so you know I'm talking to you. I don't always want to use names if we're on the recording. So just in regards, it's the step two to what you just asked me. I want to say that I really would like if you could seek scholarly advice specifically for this one, so that you know where you stand as a wife. Okay, that's my opinion right now. Like, for this particular step, seek scholarly advice and ask them, like, hey, what can I do next? Especially if it's in regards to someone restricting you seeing your family, if there isn't a legitimate reason. Okay, inshallah. The principle of life, the core principle underlying. Agreed. Your mental and emotional well-being are a priority. Agreed. I feel such rage towards my husband because I am in a very bad financial situation and he's given me a divorce. And why does he need to initiate the legal divorce? Because you can do this too. You are going to feel rage. Habibti, all of us would feel rage. I just want to make it very clear. The anger is something that is given by Allah, meaning it's natural. How we channel the anger would be the difference between good and bad, right? The emotion itself is just the emotion, but we have to be able to challenge that in the right place. And I know that's what you're asking, but just making it very clear. One of the things that I personally like to do is boxing. And I know some of you are probably laughing right now because you can probably imagine who I'm imagining when I want to do my boxing. It depends on who the person I'm angry with. But I always recommend boxing because what you're doing is you're channeling that emotion somewhere. And anger is a big one because not a lot of women do high intensity exercise to be able to release those emotions. For exercise is not only great for health, but it actually releases a lot of emotions. So I would say initiate the actual divorce if that's what you want first. Yourself, do not rely on the other person then, because otherwise you're going to be in the same limbo, well, forever. Um, and the second one is start with boxing, but with the intention of releasing the anger for the sake of like keeping your deen intact. Let's get two rewards for one thing. Bismillah. Compassion, respect, compromise, humbleness doesn't mean being humiliated. Agreed. What a wonderful point. I think we should all heart that message. The sister here says, compassion, respect, compromise, humbleness does not mean being humiliated. Agreed. And this goes across the board for everyone, whether that's marriages, parent, anyone. Walaikum assalam. Jazakallah for your session. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. I've recently got divorced and I'm on the road to healing. Allahumma barik. The thing I struggle with the most is consistency. I have periods where I'm productive. Yep, very normal. I mean, it's very normal to go on and off productivity. We all have it, by the way. I'm in a low and I don't want to do anything. What recommendations do you have to stay consistent and uphold yourself accountable? Okay, two things. Number one, you are not your emotions. People think I'm crazy when I say this, but I promise you I'm not. You are not your emotions. So your emotions are something that you feel. You get to dictate what you want to feel. And this is like higher level healing. And it's the higher level of disciplining of the nafs. We are able to say, hey, Aisha, today I'm not having any of that. I am going to do this. Granted, we're human. Some days you might not be able to get to that high. That's fine. In those days, you still have to practice self-care, meaning you have to be compassionate with yourself and remind yourself, like, hey, we can't always be productive every single day. Rest, Habibti, is productive. There's a reason why God has given you a menstruation every single month and has given you like a holiday from praying from and from fasting. Let's let's work with our cycle instead of against it. When you are feeling low, there has to be some feel good activities that you do that are not harmful to you and some people that you can reach out to that. So look at your support system. Staying consistent with goals is reminding yourself of your why. And I personally have a list that I go through every single day that I have to tick off. So I'll just I'll just say like every day there's there's things I have to do at home. So I'll be very open and frank here. I have to do the washing dishes every single day. That's one task. The next task is making sure that my cat bowls are taken care of, too. So there has to be a minimum amount of tasks that I do on a daily to feel productive. As long as I've done them, I'm good. The house can run. But you have to be compassionate with yourself when that happens because if you're going to be guilt tripping yourself, if you're going to be shaming yourself, then you're not going to get very far. But those things will happen. But I'm going to come back to the fact that we have to be gracious and having a great community as well really, really helps. I feel like scholars are biased towards the men because it's just not fair how men can disregard and took us away. I think some scholars maybe, but that's going to be everywhere. But not all, honestly, not all. Women who remain in toxic and abusive relationships and have the option to leave, is it sinful for them to remain? No, but no, if you have the intention of genuinely working on your marriage, but you are going to be asked about your own mental health. How did you look after your body? How did you look after your children? And I'm going to be, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I am also a child who had parents that got divorced. And we lived in a women's refuge as a child. And as a child who has gone through this as well, um, I do want to say sometimes it was harder for us to see our parents at each other than them having two houses. Okay. But if you are staying in the marriage, Habibti still have a plan about it. Like, what is it that you're going to put in place to make things a bit different? I hope that makes sense. Um, okay, so I also love kickboxing. Alhamdulillah. Divorce and especially the financial order is expensive. Yes, it can be. But there are also many things that you can put into place if you are in the UK. There's payment plans that you can have with different types of um, organizations. So we work with Clay Sky Legal is our core business. But also you can there's legal aid as well. And sometimes charities do help. We have discussed a lot about divorcing. How about holding the perpetrator to account, so taking action via legal authorities? This is also part of healing. Yes. I'm just gonna heart your message. Yes, correct. I think accountability is very important, and sometimes it is detrimental to do it straight away before you're emotionally able to do it. Okay, and I say sometimes, but not always. You have to judge it by your situation, right? Sometimes women very much prefer to first stabilize their modes and their abilities first and then go after them via local authorities. But I agree, I think accountability you have to put onto people because that is part of the relationship, right? Both ways. If you haven't got any assets for a financial order, you will probably not be required. Correct. Please consider asking about, please considered asking around about it by LY Family on YouTube. I'm assuming you're talking about the legalities of divorce. Uh, I divorced and left everything, and we both had 16 years of marriage for my sanity. This wasn't the beginning of life I wanted. I am, you haven't finished. Habibti, you haven't finished. I don't know what the question was. Oh, she shifted the isolation. I'm a bit confused on this one, Habibti. In order to contact me, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I think GRT always attach like contact details anyway to their emails of the person, whoever it was that delivered their classes. Usually anyway. But Clear Sky Healing is what we're called on all social medias. There's a UK Muslim group called Super Mamas on WhatsApp that helped me even in the US. Oh, Allah Mabarak. We have a WhatsApp group as well. What is the charity that gives legal help? Oh, okay. So the charities sometimes the National Zakat Foundation they actually fund. Um, I don't. I'm going to be really honest. This was a few years ago when I know that they helped someone that I knew personally. I don't know if they continue to do it, but there definitely is other Muslim charities that do that, and you have to be just willing to just reach out to them and ask them, is this something that you can help with? Okay, it depends on the situation. You are going to be asked like, hey, what's your situation now? How can you prove this to us? That type of thing. Some men are not afraid to oppress their wives and divorcing them without reasons and consultations. However, I always remember my uncle said that in the hereafter is indeed the real life. Allah will question us in the hereafter. May Allah always forgive those. May Allah always forgive us and guide us. Ameen. What a wonderful dua. Try pro bono, free legal help. I wanted to say that if I regretted leaving my assets for him because that left me financially broke and I had to start all over again, not much support for divorced women. There really isn't much support for divorced women, Habibti. That's why we started what we started. And at the age of 22, when we left, I didn't say much about this at the beginning, but I very much struggled financially. I didn't know how to budget. I knew how to pay bills and all that, but it's just something that I um really, really did struggle with. How do you know when to stay and when to leave a marriage, even after exhausting all your efforts? I think you already know the answer, Habibti. Sister, if the husband doesn't want to leave the house after 3 months, it's a period, what can be done? It depends. If are you in the UK? It depends if you want to go down the legal support route, um, and all of that. If you did, you can actually get the police to come and escort him out. It depends on who the lease is on, if that's not one go through. Not everybody does. The other thing I would say is actually speak to your family and speak to his family as well. I've come to the end. SubhanAllah, I never thought I'd get to the end. Are there any other questions? I think we perfectly did this on time. I am going to if the property is owned by both parties, I'm assuming you're in the UK, you would probably have to go through a financial order because he has a right to that property by law. Oh my God. I think I've gotten confused on who's asking what. So girls, I'm just reading. If you built yourself financially and then you shouldn't be the one to lose. Agreed. But Clay Sky Legal, that's us. We do the legal side of it. He's always willing to help, and he actually knows that I'm on a class today. So if you're not on Facebook and Instagram, Habibti, Sister Zahra, is it okay if I share my number here?
Yeah, if you feel comfortable to do so, that's
It's
fine.
my work number anyway. It's not a personal number anyway.
No worries, that's fine.
Just wanted to make sure because I want us to also visit the website of GRT as well, girls.
No problem, inshallah.
Okay, so bear with me. I'll put my I've never fully mastered the art of being able to type and talk at the same time. So that is the website. Is there anybody here that actually knows their number off by heart? I don't. Oh, 7. Sumaya is amazing, isn't she? 075717572. Wrong number. 1 second. Give me a second, girls. 07476 3. That's what I'm writing down. Yeah, my mobile number. 0747631. I should know these numbers off by heart, girls, but I'm gonna be really honest, I don't. Right. Okay, that is my phone number to all of you that are here. That is my work number. Um, though it will probably, I'm anticipating if you man my language today, if you message me, it will take me a few days to get back to you, especially today. So please be mindful of that, but you'll get a message straight away to tell you that. If there are no more questions, I would like to just thank you all for being here. And our sister Zahra, thank you so much for having me. Um,
Jazakallah khair for attending as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for all your hard efforts. Inshallah, sisters, I'll be sharing the GRT website link so you can also head over to the website to make any contributions, donations, inshallah. They do humanitarian projects all around the globe and they have their own team, especially in Gaza right now as well. So do visit their website and you can check out all the humanitarian work that they do all across the globe. Alhamdulillah. And I'll also be posting the Quranic Insights website link as well. I'll just post it in the chat box now. So anybody who hasn't registered, you can go ahead and register to receive the recording of this wonderful webinar as well. Jazakallah khair to all of you for attending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease everyone's affairs and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward Sister Aisha Javed for all the hard work that she has done. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.